Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Bao with the Google Marketing Solutions team. As Ben mentioned, I'm a gamer, still am when I can. When he mentioned the original Nintendo, by the way, I was one of those kids where if I couldn't shoot the ducks fast enough, I would put the tip of the gun to the screen and try shooting it. So, full disclaimer there, full disclaimer. And PC gaming too. I need to get back into Overwatch because Doomfist looks pretty cool. So also covered there when I can. I'll try to get into it. But mobile games is what really excited me because I noticed actually the freemium business model back when, I don't know if anyone here ever played MapleStory, developed by Nexon. Nope, just me? Okay. Well, that was the first time I seen that model where the game's free to download, but how the company would make money is through a bunch of microtransactions. And I was definitely a whale, unfortunately, even when I was in high school. So seeing that business model come to mobile gaming and seeing it grow just substantially was really insane. And it's actually a huge reason why my job is actually pretty exciting. So a couple of numbers, actually. I suppose App Annie estimates that by 2020, the in-app game revenue is going to be about $85 billion. It makes me think it's a good time to be in the business. And that's really why I'm here today, actually, is because I want to talk a bit more about the types of tools and innovations we're doing at Google to help you grow your gaming business. There's really three main levels that I want to get into when it comes to growing the mobile gaming business. The first is discovery, which is really all about getting users to actually play your game. And engagement is really about keeping the users engaged and actually playing your game. And the third level is my favorite, which is actually about making revenue off of the Java users playing your game. As I go through each one of these segments, just keep in mind that the games that you're developing now or will be launching soon. I unfortunately don't have one, but if I were to launch one, I'd honestly want to make the game something like, oh, you know what? Like Mario Kart with friends. Because I loved playing that when I was a kid. If I could play that on my mobile game or my mobile phone with my friends, that'd be amazing. So after the talk, if anyone's actually worked on it, let me know. I'll be a beta tester. All right, so for the first level, it's really about discovery. Getting users to play your game when you launch. And ideally, if you want to have a big launch, get the world to play it. But the game of discovery's changed quite a bit, actually. So back a few years ago, it was all being about the top charts. Years after that, especially when Facebook started getting serious about it, it was about finding the right segments of audiences, the niches, right, that would play your game. But nowadays, the game is much more different. Reports have been shown that about 180 million Americans in 2016 played mobile games. And because of that, virtually anybody could really be an active player of your game. Our global director of apps products, Lee Jones, he will mention this in every presentation he's in. His mother-in-law is actually a top-ranked global player of Angry Birds. His mother-in-law. And if you were to limit yourself by just targeting specific demographic segments, you wouldn't really find an active player like her. So the audience for mobile games now is so much more diverse. So it's getting a bit more complex. Add the fact that the number of contexts are changing too. You can not just be searching for a game or even just watching videos online and also playing games. In all of those different scenarios, you'll probably find ads for other games you could play. So it's a lot more complex now than just looking at the top charts. And then lastly, the market space continues to be very crowded. There are about 4 million apps and games now in each of the stores. And again, the number is just growing. So with discovery being much more of a challenge, marketers have a harder time addressing that nowadays. But luckily, with us, a lot of users, when they try to discover new games, they do turn to Google in a bunch of these different contexts I just mentioned. And that's why we set up our ad campaigns to address some of that. So just a quick overview, again, of the different properties there are when it comes to Google. As I mentioned before, users could be searching for games actively. So, of course, we have Google, search for that, and we have the Play Store. If they're playing other games and seeing ads within those, our Google Display Network covers that too. And, of course, if they're watching videos on YouTube, we also have that covered. But if you talk to any of your marketing people or you are a marketing person, that's a lot to manage, and it's just Google. Any good UA marketing person is obviously going to be managing multiple channels to diversify your portfolio. So if it's already going to take a lot of work to individually set campaigns for each of these networks, it's not going to be really scalable if you really want to grow. So that's why we announced a couple of years ago Universal App Campaigns. To catch people up to speed, it's a campaign type that allows you to advertise your Android or iOS app across all of our networks at the same time. So it really does use a lot of its automation to figure out the targeting, to figure out the ads that you put in and the bids and all those things to help you actually find the right users at the right time, at the right moment. And that's beneficial because developers have realized that the time automation saves, instead of them turning Google-specific knobs and everything, they actually get to spend more time with their creative people saying, hey, actually use some of the ads we created in our campaigns. It looks like these types of ads work really great. Let's get more of these because we're getting more engaging users. And then they can also go to their BI team and saying, hey, by the way, these users we're acquiring, they're doing a lot of these things in the game, but it looks like they're dropping off here right before they make a purchase. Let's maybe make the game better to address some of those things. Now marketers get to actually empower themselves and become a lot more than just campaign managers, but really be in charge of driving in users and building that funnel so the game can really grow. And we're really excited about that. And towards the end of the presentation, by the way, I'll talk a bit more about some of the announcements we'll have in the next coming months of the updates we're doing to universal app campaigns. Now, the other part of discovery is also making sure you have the right ad units to get the players very much into your game. And one of the biggest trends that we've noticed is actually using other types of ad units that I'll get into as well. But the biggest thing behind the universal app campaign is actually the machine learning aspect. So the thing about machine learning is that it's built upon our Google infrastructure. And you'll see some of these numbers come out as we announce some updates for universal app campaigns. But quite literally, all the different signals that you could probably think of in terms of what a user might be doing, what a user might look like, such as gender, age, device type. Per second, universal app campaigns looks at the 300 million permutations possible, and then within that same second makes 200,000 decisions when it comes to all of our networks at the same time, based off that information. I'm sure you guys have great marketing people, but I don't think they would either can match that or would want to match that, because that's a heck of a lot of information. So again, universal app campaigns compared to the other campaigns we've had before is just that much better at using the machine learning algorithm. And again, we're really excited to get into more about how we're going to advance how those campaigns run. Which then gets me into ad units. So other than images, video, and text, one of the ones that I've been really looking forward to seeing grow are actually playable ads. And as a gamer, I can tell you, if I decide, the best way for me to decide if I actually like a game is if I actually play some of it ahead of time. That's why demos exist. That's why beta tests exist. Playable ads are a really nice bite-sized way to actually do it. And when the design is actually created just right for your game, it can be huge. Because imagine getting a user coming from this ad that already knows going into the game, they haven't even opened the app yet, but going into the game and realizing, wait, this puzzle game is awesome. That's going to be a much more highly qualified user. And that's exactly why partners like Josh over at Jam City, when they were testing playable ads for Panda Pop with us, he noticed that a lot of these users coming in, because he took the time with his team to develop a great playable experience. And when he did, the two main metrics he saw from these users, increased engagement, increased customer value. Absolutely huge. And that's why we're excited that later on this year, you'll be able to use your playable ads in our universal app campaigns, which then, as I mentioned earlier, leverages machine learning to figure out the right users who are going to convert on this ad and hopefully drive value for your business. So anyway, that is level 1, discovery. Getting into the second level, it's all about engagement. And as I mentioned, engagement, as we know, right, is about retaining your users, having them play the game further. But ultimately, the easiest way to think about it is, if you want to engage user, you have to get them hooked. And what I mean by hooked is, think about just the time that you told yourself that, hey, I'm addicted to this game. I think this game is fun. I want to play it every day. You want to remember that and use that to feel how you actually do engagement into two separate parts I'll get into. The first is going to be the art of engagement, and the second is going to be the science behind that. Now, when we talk about the art of engagement, let's actually go back to the discovery section, because if you want to introduce reasons for your players to get hooked in the game, the first place you do that is actually in your ads. So the art of engagement here is actually quite simple, but it takes time to really understand, because you want to remind yourself, what's really exciting about my game? Why do users want to get hooked? If you can capture the magic of your game, the reasons that these players should get hooked, players like me should get hooked in your game, make sure they're communicating in your ads, whether it's all about the cool game world, whether it's about the cast of characters I could use. I mean, I'd be excited if I know for a fact I could recreate Civil War and actually have Iron Man duke it out with Captain America. That's amazing. Or what if it's about the accurate gameplay? If it reminds me of the old school Marvel vs. Capcom fighting games, that's exciting to me, right? So understand what really hooks your players and make sure they're absolutely communicated in your ads. And then, of course, in the art and engagement, you do want to make sure they're presented in the best way. So to get a bit technical, we understand that video is a really exciting ad unit. It's evolving quite rapidly. And literally how you orient your videos actually matters a lot. So a couple of examples here. Landscape videos and landscape mode, it's great. Landscape videos, when they pop up for a portrait app, it's okay, but it's not the most engaging thing. So there's two things that we're doing to help address that. The first is, once again, leveraging our machine learning algorithm to help generate a specific kind of portrait video ad. So this is called autoflip. This happens under the hood with universal app campaigns, but what the campaign and machine will actually do is take a look at your landscape videos and use the machine learning algorithm to identify some of the most important parts of the video and actually dynamically generate a portrait video ad to run against your other ads. And if that ad happens to convert better than some of the other ads, that's what it will continually use to find the users that are most valuable to you. So really exciting stuff. And then the second thing that a lot of advertisers have done recently that I want to make sure you're all aware of if you're using universal app campaigns is that if you actually upload a portrait video, so the video is actually film portrait, what's going to happen is AdWords will actually be able to use the portrait video interstitial ad, or just like here in the autoflip, the video is about 80 to 90% of the screen. And for developers that actually run those head-to-head against other landscape video ads, they've seen better numbers than this, actually, more than 20%, not just in conversion rates, but when they're tracking things like post-install events for retention, or even in-app purchases for revenue, portrait ad wins. So that's what we're doing to really address those, but definitely don't sleep on how you present your creatives. And when it comes to the science of engagement, it's really about making sure your team is in the best position to gather really important insights from your audience and then use those insights to just flat out make your game better. If your team, for example, isn't in the position to actually understand where is most of my revenue coming from, what are these players, not only what do they look like, but what are they doing in the game? That's important. It's also important to understand if you're running a bunch of advertising, doing a lot of discovery strategies, where are they really coming from? The best developers I know are in the position to get these insights and to use them to make their game better, to make their advertising strategy smarter. So the biggest thing that we did to really address this is that we announced Firebase Analytics last year. It's a free tool, SDK, you can have for your iOS and Android game that allows unlimited event tracking, as well as attribution reporting across multiple networks, including Google AdWords, of course. And this year, we announced that we finally added in a C++ SDK, and more importantly, a Unity SDK. So now we're actually expanding the support of Firebase Analytics for developers all across the board, Unity being a very important one that I kind of personally asked, why didn't we launch with that? But we did, so thank goodness for that. And then next on, when it comes to the actual Firebase Analytics dashboard, I did want to show some examples. So the benefit here is that you can track events happening within your game, as well as stats that you care about, such as revenue, install costs, etc., all in real time. And when I mean in real time, I truly mean in real time. As you'll see in the next screen here, if you're using Firebase to do things like push notifications, A/B test different features of your game to see how it's going, you can literally see how users are interacting with that in real time at the right moment. So again, similar to how the machine learning, the major benefit there is the real-time data, we're making sure you're in the position to do that too. So then that way you can use those decisions to either make your marketing strategy smarter or make your game even better. And again, as a player, if you're spending time to make your game more enjoyable for players like me, I'm all cool with that. So that's what we're really doing to help on the science of engagement. So that's engagement. And then lastly, I want to conclude on my personal favorite stage, monetization, right? So when it comes to helping monetizing your game, there's two main avenues, as we all know: in-app ads, in-app purchases. When it comes to the in-app ad experience, players like me, over the years, we've raised our own bar, you can say, to have good gameplay standards. And now we're actually taking that bar and applying the same rules when we're looking at in-app ad experience. So the biggest thing I'd encourage you to think about when you're creating your monetization strategy and experience within the game, think customer centricity. You guys have all seen it already. Not every single player is going to interact in the game the same way. You can't expect them to interact with your ad experience the exact same way too. So the biggest thing, there's two big things really. The first is choice. make sure that your monetization experience can encompass every possible thing your users might want to do with your ads. And the second thing is make it immersive. Because as a player, I can tell you, back in the old days when some of these game ads would be this gigantic thing that would pop out, just immediately take me out of the game, you're now giving me less reasons to play it. But if it's immersive, and I still want to keep playing it, even though I know I'm watching ads, and that's really where the key is. So the first ad unit that helps accomplishes this are native ads. And this can come in the form of, again, images, video, etc., etc. But we really encourage you to think about these types of ad units and make sure your game is developed to handle this sort of inventory. Because we've seen it time and time again that when users are more immersed in the game, they'll interact more with your ads. That's good from you from a revenue perspective because you're obviously making more money that way and not having users like me just leave if it's a negative experience. But it's also just really good for the player. Again, it keeps me engaged. It lets you get more data on what's really working here. So we really encourage investing in native ads. And the announcement I'd like to make here today is that, similar to Firebase Analytics, we want to expand the support of developers all across the board. So we did have announced a Unity plugin now for just the AdMob SDK. So now it allows support for ad mediation across Android and iOS, even on the Unity platform. So really excited about this. This is going to basically help expand the type of inventory that's available for native ads in general. And then the last ad unit in terms of immersive experiences are rewarded ads. So for rewarded ads, it's nice because it helps let users opt in into the experience and then give them the choice, because then you get to monetize the users that wouldn't really make an in-app purchase, but would actually be open to playing more, even though they don't want to pay, but they want to monetize on the ad. So what's great here is the important announcement I want to make is that we've expanded the rewarded video ad network to these 9 developers, with Tapjoy being the most recent one. And the other thing that we've done to increase the inventory there is to actually allow any advertiser with a video ad using Google App Install campaigns, they're now advertisers eligible to actually serve in your rewarded ad unit on AdMob. So really exciting thing to expand the actual user base for rewarded ads. And lastly, what I want to communicate here is when it comes to the in-app purchase side, the biggest thing we're doing with our universal app campaigns we're announcing is that we're allowing these campaigns where you can run them and you can actually bid on the specific in-app event. So obviously this includes purchases, but we're also giving the flexibility of not just saying here are the predefined list of events, use these. We're actually allowing you to tell us what other events outside of purchase matter to you. And this is going to help drive the other side of the equation when it comes to monetization. And we're really excited to make these announcements in the next coming months for universal app campaigns. So that's basically it in terms of the entire journey. The big things to take away here are automation. We're using machine learning for that. We're investing heavily in creative ad units, and we're making sure that we have tools to arm you with the insights to help make your experience better and grow your gaming business. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Bao. Please join me in thanking Bao.